Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. I'm speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas, and it's a hot one today. It's been in the upper 90s here in Kansas anyway, so it's nice being in the basement. It's actually a little cooler down here, so I usually spend most of my time anyways down here, but man, is it hot outside. Today I am doing a series on my favorite 20 movies of the 1990s. I already did videos on my favorite 20 movies of the 2010s and the 2000s, and so now I'm going down to the 1990s. 1990s, it's a pretty big decade for me. Born in the 80s, kind of grew up in the 90s. 90s was kind of the decade that I really first kind of really fell in love with movies and movies, music, TV, sports. Everything really happened in the 90s. I kind of got into that age where I was starting to pay attention to everything that's going around in the world. So it's a pretty big decade for me. Started off as a kid, ended up a teenager in this decade. Watched quite a lot of movies. This is when I really started going to the movie theaters. Family started taking us. Of course, I wasn't old enough to go myself, but went on a lot of movies with my family, with my dad and my mom, and then my older sister. When she got old enough to drive, she drove me to movies, and we would watch movies together. So I have a lot of fond memories of the 90s and going to see a lot of these movies. Even as a kid, I was going to see some of these some pretty big movies that came out this decade. Anyway, so starting in the 1990s, number 20 is a movie called Regarding Henry from 1991. This is probably a little, not really well-known movie, not a big blockbuster by any fact. Stars Harrison Ford and Annette Bening. And Harrison Ford plays Henry, and he's at the beginning he's married to Annette Bening, and they have a daughter, and he's kind of this hotshot lawyer, but he's a real jerk. And at the beginning, spoilers for this movie, he gets shot in the head at the very beginning of the movie, basically, and gets kind of some brain damage, and I think he goes maybe into a coma or something like that. Wakes up, doesn't remember, has basically amnesia, doesn't remember anything about his life, and has to go through rehab. And then eventually gets to go back to his family, who he doesn't know his wife, doesn't know his daughter at all, doesn't remember anything about his past. And so it's a very interesting movie about this guy who comes out of this, and his personality basically changes. Before he was a hotshot lawyer jerk. Here he's actually kind of more of a nice guy. He's very more insecure, very more unsure of himself, unsure of the world. So his personality totally changes, and he actually becomes a better person because, and then he kind of finds out about his past and kind of regrets that he lived his past that way, and he did some bad things in his past, and he kind of seeks to kind of recorrect the bad things he did and try to be a better husband, be a better father. Anyway, so it's really cool. I love the concept of the movie. Harrison Ford's great. I love Harrison Ford. Such a good actor, and he does such a good job of conflicting these two personalities from the beginning to the rest of the movie. Anyways, and yeah, it's just a very good, heartwarming movie, I think. Yeah, definitely check it out. It's not one that you ever see on TV. I don't know if it's on DVD or anything. I don't own it. In fact, I think I looked it up on DVD, and it was kind of hard to find. So it's not a big, well-known movie, but if you ever find it, yeah, definitely check Regarding Henry out. I think you definitely enjoy that one. Number 19 on my list, a little bit different. It's a kung fu action movie. I'm a huge fan of kung fu action, martial arts movies. And this one's a Jackie Chan movie called Legend of the Drunken Master. Came out in 1994. Also called Drunken Master 2, I think sometimes it's called, but most of the time it's called Legend of the Drunken Master. He made a Jackie Chan, of course, famous kung fu actor extraordinaire. He made a movie called The Drunken Master back in the late 70s, and it was a huge hit, one of his first huge hits. And so this one comes out much later, 1994, so quite a bit later they come out with the sequel, Legend of the Drunken Master, Drunken Master 2, where he kind of plays the same character but older, I guess. But anyways, and kind of continue. Doesn't really have a lot to do with the first movie. You really don't need to see the first movie to watch this one. They don't really connect all that much. And the next thing, it's called Drunken Master because the character that Jack Chan plays, he's kind of his father is like a kung fu master, and teaches kung fu to people. Of course, he learns kung fu through his father, and he's very good at it. And but he's a little more immature. His father's very strict, very serious. He's a little more prankster. Doesn't really follow the rules. Gets in trouble a lot. So he has kind of opposite personality of his father, and he forms this style of kung fu fighting called drunken boxing. I think he calls it drunken boxing, I believe, in which he acts drunk when he's doing his kung fu. He's waving around like this, and he doesn't stay still, and he just kind of moves around. He stumbles, and that's his style of kung fu, which obviously is not real. It's something Jack Chan invented for the movie Drunken Master back in the 70s, and it's really cool to watch. It's really what makes that movie so fun. And this one is watching him, do the kung fu fighting, acting like he's drunk. Of course, he can't kung fu. I'm pretty sure he couldn't be good at kung fu fighting and being drunk, but somehow he makes it look. So it's kind of a fun style, not realistic, but it's fun watching him. And it's still really cool when he's in fight scenes. The fight scenes are, of course, really, really good. Jack Chan kind of co-directs the movie. I think the original director, who was a legendary kung fu fighter and director himself, they were at odds with each other. So the director, I think, quits like halfway through the movie. And so the second half of the movie is actually directed by Jackie Chan. So he's kind of a co-director, I guess. He wasn't supposed to direct the movie, but he definitely had more star power than the director, so the director eventually kind of left, basically. And so he does the choreography, he does a lot of the directing, of course, which Jack Chan did a lot of. He did a lot of his own directing and does his own stunt choreography and has his own stunt team, of course, and of course stars in the movies anyway. So he does it all, and he's just amazing. I think my favorite kung fu fighter, martial arts actor is Jackie Chan, and this is definitely one of the best. If you look at Jackie Chan's best, this is usually number one or pretty close to number one. And this is definitely one of my favorite. I don't know if it's number one, but it's pretty close to being my favorite movie of his. The fight scenes are just so incredible, and the stunt work. And he also does comedy, which I love. Jackie Chan does great, he can do some acrobatics. His choreography is really good, and he's also very funny. He also knows how to put some physical comedy into the fights and into his performances, which kind of makes him different than other kung fu fighters who are usually very serious when they fight, but he's not. And so it's a very entertaining movie, I think, overall. The story is not the best, or the performances aren't the best necessarily, but I love watching it for the fights. The last fight scene is one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Absolutely love. He goes on one-on-one with this other guy at the end, and it's a really fun fight scene, but very well choreographed. It's very fast moving. It's incredible what he does, and if you haven't watched a Jackie Chan movie, definitely I recommend watching this one to really see how good he is and what's so great about Jackie Chan. Anyway, so that's Legend of the Drunken Master, number 19. Number 18, it's a sci-fi kind of comedy action called Men in Black. There you got with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. This is the first one, really the only good one out of the series, in my opinion. Very popular when it came out too. I remember it came out, 1997. I remember seeing it in the movie theater. Very fun movie. It's a sci-fi action, and yeah, Will Smith, of course, very funny. His star power was really getting huge at that point with like Independence Day, and this movie I think came around the same time. He was definitely like one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, and so this is really just. And I just watched this recently. I wasn't sure if it was going to hold up. It still holds up for me. I love the sci-fi element of there's aliens walking around amongst us. We just don't know it. I love that concept, and even the costume work and the makeup and all that is done very well. Still works today. I believe he won an Oscar for the costuming, and the makeup of the aliens are done so well. And of course, I love the chemistry between Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones plays this very serious agent, and never smiles or cracks jokes, just serious. Will Smith is, of course, the opposite. He's more of a jokester and is very funny and comical, and they have really good contrast with each other and do very well. Um, and I love the futuristic aspect of it. The different weaponry they have is very cool, and the different technology they have, I really enjoy. I also enjoy I don't know what the organization, this organization, I forget what it's called, that kind of monitor aliens when they come in, and kind of almost like a government agency, keeping track of the aliens that are on Earth and what threats there might be and all that. And I love the bureaucracy of it. Walking in, there's all these people doing, different, desk work and paperwork, and it's just like an office, except there's these crazy aliens that walk in, and they're just used to it, so it's no big deal. And I kind of love the aspect. It was like just another government bureaucracy, and like at some point, the world's gonna, this alien species is threatening to blow up the Earth, and Rip Torn, who's playing like I don't know if he's the president of this or leader of this organization, says, "Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Like this happens all the time, They're used to aliens, threatening to blow up the Earth, and so they're not panicking. They're just like, yeah, that sucks. That they do that sometimes. Anyway, so I love that aspect of it. Anyway, it's very well done. The bad guy is very Vincent Don. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but Vincent D'Onofrio. I can never say that last name, but the bad guy in it, very creepy, very well done makeup work, and even the last fight scene where they're fighting the alien, very well done, very creepy alien, and kind of scary at parts. Anyways, so I still like this movie is a good sci-fi action comedy, which is what I like a lot. I like those kind of movies, so still a very enjoyable movie. At number 18. Number 17, another sci-fi movie. I like sci-fi and fantasy, so you'll see a lot of sci-fi fantasy on my list. And one of my favorite series of all time, this is Star Trek First Contact. This is the second movie with the Next Generation cast, with Luke Picard and Data and Worf, all those characters. Of course, they transitioned from the original cast after they did their 6 movies, and then Next Generation, of course, was going on at this time in the 90s. This came out in 1996. This is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Loved watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. I like Star Trek the original too, but Next Generation is always my favorite Star Trek because I watched it as a kid, and I watched all the new episodes and really enthralled into it and loved the characters. And so I was happy when they started making their own movies, starting with Generations, which is a pretty good movie too. But this is my probably favorite Star Trek movie. Definitely my favorite of this cast. The Borg is the best villain that they've created, I think, in Star Trek. Great villain in the series that comes and goes in the series, and so I was so happy that they made them the main bad guy of a movie. Best bad guy of all the movies, I think, is the Borg. They're very creepy. I say they're multiple bad guys because there's a lot of different kind of half man, half machine characters that are kind of controlled by the mother. They're all kind of controlled by one person or one entity, I guess, and they all are just seeking to destroy. And so great premise for a movie, and plus it has to deal with trying to go, and there's a time travel aspect which I enjoy. I love time travel in movies, and there's this great time travel aspect of trying to go back in time. Borg are trying to go back in time and trying to take out the person who invented the warp drive for Earthlings. And so if they can kill the guy who invented warp drive for the Earthlings anyways, then we would never go into space, and then they would never have to worry about the Enterprise stopping them and all this anyway. So it's a really great concept, a great story idea. There's a lot more to it, and there's like I said, great cast. Love Data. Luke Picard is probably my favorite captain. Such a good actor. Patrick Stewart as Luke Picard, the captain. Yeah, it's just some great action in here. Best action I think we've had in Star Trek movie, and very, like I said, kind of scary at parts, very creepy at parts. Great ending to it. Yeah, it's definitely my favorite Star Trek. Highly recommend. I love watching this one, Star Trek First Contact. Number 17. So my last movie I'm going to talk about in this video, number 16 on my list, which is Jumanji, which came out in 1995. This is the original Jumanji with starring Robin Williams as the main character. Also has Bonnie Hunt, David Alan Grier. Story about, Jumanji is a board game that has like these special powers that sucks you into this imaginary world called Jumanji, which is like a jungle world. And Robin Williams gets pulled in as a kid, and then he, like 30 years later, so 20 years later, whatever, he comes back out. I think about 30 years maybe. He comes back out of the board game as two other kids are playing, and the world has changed, of course, because now he's an adult. He's Robin Williams, and then they got to play the game, because if they don't finish the game, then all these animals and so forth are coming out of the game, and they're very dangerous, and they're actually going after the people who who are playing it. So they're basically going to get killed if they don't finish this game. So it's this great, race against time type of atmosphere. And Robin Williams is so good. He was really one of the best at this time period. I think that he was really at the height of his career. I think here it's kind of starting in the late 80s, getting into the mid 90s. His star power probably started going down after this, around this time, or probably around, I guess, after he won his Oscar, which is close after this movie. I think he would win his Oscar for Good Will Hunting for Best Supporting Actor, but still so great. Of course, it's got this great combination of fantasy, action, adventure, comedy, and even some drama in it. I think Robin Williams gives a really great performance. It's kind of a different kind of character that he doesn't normally play. He's kind of this traumatized person who's been in this Jumanji world for like 30 years or whatever, and he's coming into the world. He doesn't know where his family is. He doesn't know what happened, and so it's very traumatic, or very dramatic things going on. And he does a very good job giving the dramatic performance. I think it's a great performance, dramatically even at parts, even though it's obviously Robin Williams is known for his comedy, and he does some comedy in here, but it's really not as broad comedy as usually gives. Usually his movies, a very silly kind of comedy, but it's not silly at all in here. It comes out at times, but it's just very good performance overall. And Bonnie Hunt's really great as like his childhood friend. I love the chemistry between all four, the characters, them and the two kids, and just great concept of an idea movie. And I love the performances. I love all the animals are coming out. The CGI is not very good because it's 1995 CGI, and so it's definitely dated. But I do love the idea of the different animals and so forth coming out and being dangerous. And a great ending. I love the ending. It's one of the best. Anyways, I think, of course, we now have some new Jumanji movies with Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart and Jack Black. We've had two of those kind of as somewhat sequels to this, though not a little bit connection, not a lot of connection, and they've been very popular. Anyways, and I enjoy them too, but I think I like this one the best still. The original is still really, really good. Anyway, so that's my number 16, Jumanji, and so that's my first 5, and so I'll continue doing this list here pretty soon. And just feel free to comment on what you think about these movies that I'm talking about as my favorites, or tell me what your favorite movies of the 90s are. I love to read comments, and just thank you for watching and subscribing and liking these videos, and I enjoy making them, and I appreciate you all.